New Zealand's self-proclaimed Bishop Brian Tamaki of Destiny Church has blamed earthquakes on sinners and homosexuality. The fact that plate tectonics actually cause earthquakes seems to be a little lost on Brian, so I'm guessing he didn't pay attention much in geography in school. But rather than give him a science lesson, I'd like to remind him about a few other religious folk who had some pretty equally nasty things to say about gay people. First up, here in New Zealand, there's Graham Capel, a former police prosecutor, failed politician, and Christian who publicly stated gay people were immoral. On marriage equality, he had this to say: "It is our submission that no government should consider giving rights to fornicators, adulterers, and homosexuals." And he said this about same-sex couples who had children: "To raise children in such an environment is irresponsible and morally sick." So in other words, gay people don't deserve rights and cannot be trusted around children. Well, in 2005, Graham Capel was convicted on a charge of indecently assaulting an 8-year-old girl on 4 occasions, and 3 charges of indecent assault, 1 of rape and 1 of unlawful sexual connection with girls under the age of 12. He was sentenced to 9 years in jail and granted parole after serving 6 years in prison. That was a case in New Zealand, but there have been plenty in that bastion of Christian virtue, the United States of America. Ted Haggett is an evangelical preacher who is publicly and vehemently against marriage equality and indeed any rights for gay people. He resigned from his church after admitting an affair with a male prostitute. However, he underwent intensive prayer therapy and declared himself cured and now totally heterosexual. He did later admit that if he were a younger man, he'd describe himself as bisexual. And who can forget George Reckers, a Baptist minister and one of the Christian right's most prominent anti-gay activists, who believes homosexuality could and should be cured. Well, Reckers was caught at an airport with a male prostitute returning from a flight to Bermuda. He'd found the sex worker on the site rentboy.com, where the worker listed himself as sensual, wild, and up for anything. And finally, there's Jim Bakker. You may remember him and his wife Tammy Faye. Bakker was a televangelist who raked in millions of dollars. To this day, he still takes swipes against so-called sinful homosexuals and our supposedly immoral lifestyle. This is despite the fact that in 1989, the hypocrite was sentenced to 45 years in federal prison after being found guilty on 24 counts of fraud. He eventually served just 5 years in prison. A footnote to Bakker's story is that his son Jay is a preacher who is very welcoming of gay and lesbian people in his congregation, so there can be a silver lining to these awful stories. So it seems, Brian Tamaki, that all those men I've mentioned have accused queer people of all manner of nasty things, and all of these men were either gay themselves or hiding some rather nasty sides to their personalities and their behaviour. They attacked us because it deflected attention away from themselves. Now, I'm not saying you're secretly gay or that you're hiding nefarious activities, but since you're so hostile to homosexuality, some people might believe you have something to hide, and that is something you might want to think about. If you liked my video, please share it. If you didn't, share it anyway. You can reach me, contact@gaytalktonight.com. Thanks for watching.